Hi everybody, it's been a while since I've done a video. It's been a pretty crazy semester between this pandemic and applying for new programs and scholarships and school and work. But we're here again, and this time we're going to be doing some seed sowing of some pretty unusual stuff that I had gifted to me by a fellow Instagram gardener under the username Inspire Ecology. Their webpage is very inspiring. It considers gardening in terms of an ecological perspective that encourages both wildlife, the greatest amount of biodiversity, and human interactions. I recommend you guys check them out. I'm going to leave a link down below in the bio to their page. Give them a like and a follow. You guys will really like what they post. So today we're going to be doing some seed sowing to what they gave and a little discussion about the plants that were given. And I had these soaking already in some water, so the compost is all moist. It's the standard seed starting mix. So pour in nutrients, very good at getting the seeds going. But once they get going, you're going to need to plant them on into something that actually has nutrients. They've been soaking for a while and they're kind of getting a green tinge, but that should be okay. A lot of the plants that were given are woodlanders, so they grow in forests, underneath trees, which for a lot of us gardeners, that tends to be a problem spot because, well, it's shady. And they also tend to be dry because you're competing with the tree roots. But it doesn't need to be a challenge. It's an opportunity. There's a lot of interesting plants that thrive underneath tree canopies. So the first one is not one of those. It's Acanthus spinosus. Acanthus is really famous because in a lot of Roman architecture, you could actually see the leaves were put into the design. Acanthus spinosus is from the Mediterranean, and like the name says, spinosus, it's spiny. The leaves are really spiny on the margins, and I really like that. I've tried growing Acanthus hungaris before, but I think I over-soaked the seed, because sometimes they recommend with these thicker seeds that you soak them. I'm not going to soak these. I'm just going to plant them direct. And let me see if I could do this one-handed, or if I could put this. No, I'm gonna have to do it one-handed. I didn't plan this out. Okay. So Acanthus spinosus, like I said, is from the Mediterranean. It's pretty drought tolerant. Like other acanthus, it sends up these big spikes of purpley white flowers. I think Acanthus spinosus, sometimes the flowers, the spike is deeply covered in purple. But since these are seed grown, there's probably going to be variation. So here's a picture. Here's the seeds. They're pretty large. A little bit different from hungaris, which were more round and black. So that's pretty interesting. One key note with Acanthus is that once you plant them in the ground, make sure you're planting them in an area where you're going to be okay with them staying forever. The reason why is you could yank up the plant, but like a dandelion, they have a taproot, and pieces of the taproot that are left behind will regrow. So that means they will come back. Another thing I recommend is if you're not into this plant self-seeding, once it's done and you see that seeds are developing, cut off the flower stalk, throw it away or burn it. It will self-seed around. In my case, I'm okay with it self-seeding a little bit. So there were 2 seeds, and I'm going, oh shoot. Okay, put one down, let me get the other one. Difficult having these one-handed. Okay, I'm going to press them down so they're flushed and in contact with the soil, and I'm going to do an experiment. One of them I'm going to lightly cover, and the other one I'm going to leave on the surface, and then I'm going to cover all of these guys with perlite. I was using vermiculite before, and you guys can see some of that vermiculite there. But it's expensive to buy a whole bag. It's 20 bucks. I'm a college student on a budget, so instead I switched over to perlite. This perlite from Miracle-Gro. They pretty much have essentially the same function. But with perlite encourages aeration, and vermiculite actually holds in moisture, which might explain why some of my seedlings actually were rotting off at the collar. There was just too much moisture being held. So this is the Perlite versus Vermiculite is an experiment as well. Okay, so we have those planted. Awesome. And Acanthus spinosus is also really good. And all Acanthus are really good at attracting some of the larger body bees. So like bumblebees and Xylocopa, the carpenter bees. Those larger bees. Smaller bees like honeybees will have trouble getting in. The lip of the flower is pretty tight. And I believe I read somewhere that it's actually like that on purpose. So it's selective on which pollinators get access to it. So bumblebees and Xylocopas, they need that help. So Planet Acanthus. Okay. Okay. This next one, Symph albris, here's the whole name. Symphocarpus albris is, I believe it's called the snowberry. It's related to beauty berries. It's a group of shrubs that they have really tiny flowers. I think they're showy, but most people don't grow them for the flowers. They grow them for the berries. The berries are pretty large, and they tend to be in metallic colors. So like snowberry typically is white. I think there's a couple of pink forms. There's beautyberry, which is dark purple that almost looks fake. These are plants that if you want to encourage wildlife, awesome. The berries will bring in the birds, but they tend to bring in the birds late in the season. So for some reason, the birds just don't like eating these guys up until the end. Maybe it has to do with the cold ripening the berry until it gets more sweet. I'm not too sure. If anyone knows, comment below. But since it takes so long, that means us as the gardener get to enjoy those berries till pretty much early spring, which is pretty cool. So let me try doing this again one-handed. This plant is understory. It's an understory shrub. It's prunable, so you could prune it to size. Typically, it could probably get. Hold up. I'm going to have to put the camera down and have you guys looking at the wall while I get this seed out. Typically, they could get 5 to 6 feet. You could prune them. In fact, I think it's probably recommended to prune them to maintain their size and structure and their bearing capabilities. Here's a picture of the seed. And it looks like they were already cleaned, which is awesome. One of the problems with berries is that if you leave the flesh on the berries, a lot of berries actually have an inhibitor that stops the seed from growing. And the reason why is because that seed needs to usually pass through a digestive tract. Or if it gets left on the bush, it needs to be broken down by winter cold. And all those processes break down those inhibitors. So if you don't want to wait for winter to break down the berry, or you don't have something to eat the berry, you could clean off the skin, let it dry, and boom, the inhibitor should be gone. It's recommended that the seed gets some cold treatment, which means in another video, we talked about these seeds down below, how I had them in the refrigerator so I can mimic winter. I did that already for that month period after I received these, so I'm going to see if that's enough for them to grow. If not, I leave the leftover seeds and let them go through the process for another 2 to 3 months. Or I might just sow some and leave one of these little seed cells outside. We shall see. So let me just sow them. Boom, 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 boom. And I had some that fell out earlier. Okay. So that's that. And I'm going to leave them on the surface. I don't think they need that covering, and I think the perlite will cover them enough. So the next one is one I'm pretty excited for. It's a viburnum. I don't have any viburnums at the moment in the yard. Viburnums are a really diverse group of shrubs / small trees. Some of them are evergreen. Some of them flower in summer, spring. I think there might be a couple of fall ones. This one is Viburnum Rhitrodorphyllum. believe it's an Asian species, evergreen, has pinkish white flowers. I think the flowers open up white, and as they age or get pollinated, they turn pink, and it gives way to black, blue, or red berries. This one is probably going to be a long haul. I've heard that it takes a while to grow. And I'm planning on actually wall training this. So I'm not going to let it grow as a freestanding tree. This one actually grows almost to small tree proportions. I'm going to wall train it so those leaves cover the wall, protect the wall. And I think that might actually encourage it to flower and berry more. The bark on this species is very nice. It's very similar to what's it called? Strawberry tree. So it's kind of peeling and a dark mahogany color. And that peeling bark is really important for wildlife because a lot of small invertebrates find those peeling pieces and they hide in there over winter. So that's pretty cool. Along with being evergreen, it's adding interest. Those berries are going to attract birds. It's going to be awesome. And I'm probably going to plant 2 or 3 of them together because I think they need a partner to have a really good berry crop. Or I might put some other viburnums. This 2 to 3 other ones I'm kind of interested in. And hopefully they will cross-pollinate. I need to do further research on this. So I'm going to put the camera down again so I can open up the seed thing. And like before, okay. And again, this species is native to Asia. I think actually the Himalayas, so it's pretty cold. It's pretty cold tolerant, which is good. And I think this is another one that needs some frost treatment. So let me get the camera. There's the seeds. The camera will focus. They're pretty. It kind of look like they have cool markings on them. So just like before, I'm going to scatter them about on top. And I'm making sure that there's some space between them so they don't immediately start choking each other out. So just like that. Boom. And then press them down a little bit. So there we go. One of them moved. Press them down just a little bit so that they're making contact with the soil. And boom, we can move on to the next one. So the next one is it's a jasmine. It's Jasminium. Well, it's Chilum. A lot of us are familiar with jasmines, specifically the one that they sell around Easter time, which is Jasminium officinalum or polycarpum. I'm not too sure. Most jasmines have a really nice scent. I believe this one also has a nice scent, and it has yellow flowers. It's a vining shrub, and this one will also be trained on the wall. The camera can't focus. So I'm pretty excited about that. This one's another Asian species. I think it comes from high up in the mountains, so I'm kind of curious how it's going to handle the heat here. But I'm thinking if I plant it in a semi-shaded spot and keep the moisture levels pretty good and add some compost, it and the viburnum and some of these other woodland plants would be okay. But that's part of gardening. It's all about experimentation. So I'm going to put the camera down again so I could open up the seat. And like before, I show you guys the seat. So let me open this up. Okay. Alrighty, so we have some seed right here. Pretty dark color. I've never grown jasmines from seed. In fact, I haven't really grown that many woody plants from seed. I have a couple of native shrubs and trees, but this is new. Good experiment. And just like before, I'm going to sprinkle them on the top. Move them around so they're not too clustered up. press them down. Just like that. And I'm hoping that I get a lot of germination. I'm only going to probably be keeping one of each. Except probably the acanthus, I might keep both since it was only 2 seeds. The rest of them I will probably either sell, or if you're watching the video Inspiring Ecology and you need some of these guys back, I could send you the plants back. So that's the nice thing about gardening and sharing what you have with others, is that if something happens to your stock, oh wait, I shared it with someone, I could ask for some of it back. Gardening is it's a sharing community, pretty much. So the next one is blah 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 blah. Euonymus latiflorus. A lot of us have probably seen Euonymus. They tend to be evergreen shrubs, I believe. They come in different colors. Really cool. A little bit overused, but that's okay. Now there's a couple of really cool species out there, and the one that I'm about to sow is different from those shrubs in that it's actually a tree. It has small flowers, white flowers, and later on in the season it has red berries that split to reveal the seed. Oh damn! To reveal the seeds. The birds will feed off of the seeds, so it's another one of those plants that if you're trying to attract wildlife to the garden, perfect. Let me show you guys the seed. There were 2 in there, and unfortunately Butterfingers here dropped one, so here's hoping. And boom, just like that, it's planted, and it's hope it grows. So let's move on to the next one. The next 2 that we're going to be planting are actually members of the blackberry group, Rubris. Rubris? Yes, Rubris. This is Rubris irionaeus, and the other one that we have is Rubris nilardus. Both of them are Asian. One of them is a creeping species, and the other one grows more as a shrub. My plan with both of them is I'm going to grow them, save one, and then I'm going to save a large plastic pot and bury that pot with the plant in the ground. The reason why is because a lot of rubris can be a little bit aggressive at the roots, which means that they spread by underground rhizomes. I have a small yard, and I don't want that to happen, so I'm trying to avoid that, but I still want these plants. So that's one of the ways you could avoid it, is you could keep it in a container. They have the typical blackberry flower, which there will be a picture of it up on the screen. And they do produce fruit, which again will attract wildlife. And I think we could eat them, but I need to do future research on that. So these 2, when it's ready to plant them out, I probably will have spotlight videos that will talk about that later on, or if you know, comment down below. So let me get them out of their little seeds. And the first one we're going to be planting is Rubris nilardus. And just like with the snowberry, these guys, again, they produce a berry. So if you're going to be saving seeds, you're going to want to clean the flesh off of the away from the seed, because they have inhibitors. Here is the seed. Pretty cool. And then where do I have it? It's right here. And right here. Scatter it about. Boom. And just press it down so that they make contact with the soil. And boom. So now let's do the next one, which will be Rubris irionaeus. And let me put the camera down again. And I believe Rubris ironatus is the creeping species. I tried growing a rubris before. I can't remember the name of it. And it did good, but then it got cooked. And I think I had it in too much sun. So if you're going to be growing rubris that aren't of the culinary forms, I would recommend putting them in part shade if you're growing them down here in the desert southwest. We'll sprinkle in the seeds just like before, and they looked exactly like the other ones. And boom, ready to go. So the next plant we're going to be growing is Phygelus capriensis, or the Cape fuchsia. I like this genus a lot, and I don't have much experience with it, except that I recently bought a form called Magenta from Annie's Annuals. And let me show you guys that plant. Here he is. This is a Cape fuchsia. And just like the normal fuchsia we're all familiar with, this one has long tubes. Great for attracting hummingbirds. I'm pretty sure some of the bees will nectar rob from it. Native to South Africa. It's semi-drought tolerant. Will prefer a richer soil. And it flowers all summer long, pretty much until the frost. I'm growing the straight species. And I believe capriensis has a fuchsia-y reddish flower. There's a yellow species out there too, and they have crossed them together to create a bunch of different hybrids. You could wall train this, and I don't think I'm going to do that. I'm going to let it grow and let it spread. It does spread by rhizomes a little bit, so if you're worried about that, you could do the containerizing idea I told you guys about with the rubris for this. But with this one, I'm going to let it spread, because it's going to be in the front yard where we have some trees right by the street. So I don't mind having an aggressive plant out there to act as a ground cover. So I'm going to put the camera down again. So really great plant for attracting hummingbirds. In its native land, they don't have hummingbirds, they have sunbirds. And sunbirds act in a similar manner to hummingbirds do here in the Americas, and that they're nectivores, which means their diet is mostly consisting of nectar and pollen. And they're an example of what they call convergent evolution, when nature does why reinvent the wheel. So if you have a good design and you have two organisms that are living similar lifestyles, they're going to look the same. So here's the seed. It's pretty small. Just like before, we're going to sprinkle it about. Firm it down. And hope for the best. And I think this one needs to be surface sown. The other ones, I think they could be buried a little bit, but I don't want to risk it because I have a heavy hand with watering. And I don't want them to rot. So I'm going to keep them on the surface and just cover them thickly with vermiculite. The next one, we have two more, is a Hedychium. Hedychium yarn. Let me get this. Yarnulatus. It's another Asian species. Hedychiums closely resemble cannas. They're not related. In fact, they're gingers. They are in the ginger family, which is Zingiberaceae, but they are not edible. Do not eat them. They do contain cancer-causing chemicals in them. They are, however, super pretty. They grow in a similar manner to a cannas, so you got an upright stalk with leaves coming off that's topped by a flower. The flowers on these vary in color. I believe this species is on the yellowish white side of things, and they tend to be really, really highly scented. So really great if you, and they tend to be scented, let me add, during the evening into the night. So if you have parties in the evening, don't have any parties right now, we're in pandemic mode, really great for scenting the nighttime air. And they probably will attract hummingbirds during the day, and bats and moths during the night. So that's awesome. Another thing for attracting wildlife. And a lot of times bats don't really get the attention they need. They are pollinators, and they are crucial to the ecology of the lands that they occupy. So let me put the camera down again. I don't have any hedychiums in my yard at the moment other than this one, and that's saying that it germinates. They pretty much have the same requirements as a canal. So really good soil, rich in manure and organic material. They're heavy feeders. They like a lot of water too. And I live in the desert Southwest, so it's probably not the smartest to be having plants that require a lot of water. But the way I get around that is I heavily add organic material to where I'm doing tropical plantings, so that I could change the soil so it acts more like a sponge and holds onto that water easier. The other thing I do is I mulch, and I have a drip system. So instead of watering from above, a lot of that water just evaporates. A drip system, that water is going straight to the soil, straight to the roots where it matters. They do make tubers as they age. And if you live in a colder area, again, you could treat them like a canal at the Hilia, dig them up, store them, keep them on the dry side of things. You might want to add some moisture every once in a while. And you can store them in a bag that has either vermiculite or perlite in them. And then plant them out again the following year. I'm in zone 8. That's not really a problem here. So they're going to stay in the ground. Here's the seeds. I sowed some of them earlier. The camera will focus. And just like before, I'm going to spread them out. Boom. Ready to go. So now we're on to our last plant. This is Garcia Shaloon. Garcias are, I think they're more popular up north, especially on the East Coast, where I think a lot of the species are actually from. They're a creeping ground cover shrublet, evergreen, has flowers that resemble that of a blueberry. They're in the Ericulaceae family, which is the blueberry family. A lot of those like acidic soil. So if you have alkaline soil, grow this in a pot. It will die in alkaline soil. Me, I'm on neutral soil, so it should be okay. It does produce berries. Again, pretty long lasting, really good for attracting wildlife. And the flowers are early in the spring, so really good for attracting those pollinators. Along with being evergreen, it will prevent I lost the words. Water evaporation and improve soil conditions. So let me put the camera down again. And again, since this is making a berry, you're going to want to clean the flesh off. Open this guy up. Seeds are really small on this one. Let me show you guys the seeds. There's the seeds, pretty cool. And just like before, I'm going to sprinkle them onto the surface. Just like that. If the camera will focus. Spread them out a little bit so they don't compete with each other. And then boom, that's done. So the last thing we're going to do is spread the perlite. So what I do is I just grab a handful, shake it about. I probably got a little bit too much on this one. Spread it out. If it's too thick in some places, spread it out. So I need these three. Again, I renew a handful. Just like that. And then firm the vermiculite down, so it's pushing the seeds down a little bit, and that is pretty much ensuring you that the seeds that are below are making contact with the soil. That's important because if the seeds aren't making contact with the soil, they're not going to grow. Another way you could do is you could get a mister, mist the top. That will push the vermiculite down even more and get rid of some of the dust, and then you should be good. So there we go. Thank you again, Ecological Gardener. I really appreciate what you did for me, and I hope we do some more work together. There will be update videos about this batch of seeds. And yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed. There's going to be a ton more videos coming soon. In fact, pretty much one after the other. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and get gardening and stay safe.